sign-up sheets going around. We're going to send a bunch of resources, including a link to our
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
about Kickstarter over the years. This is the book that you will get. So it's detecting this. Warren with her nonfiction. We helped Joanna Penn with her nonfiction. We've helped fantasy authors like Martha Carr. We've helped fantasy authors as horror authors, Oracle decks, RPGs, across over 125 campaigns that we've there's 5 parts. People are pretty spun up on one of those 5, which means they're leaving just so much money on the table. And we're going to stop letting you, we're going to stop having you leave a bunch of money on the table and show you how to make money in the pre-launch, the launch, the dead zone, the last days, and then fulfillment. All right, let's get started. First, we'll talk about pre-launch. So the first question I get when people, when I talk about pre-launch, they say, how do you make money in pre-launch? It's literally before the launch. That's antithetical to everything that the word launch means. You can't pre-go up to space, you just go up to space for launch it. But how you make money is really setting yourself up for success, getting backers to your pre-launch page, asking your audience to review the campaign, and most importantly, build excitement to make the most money on launch day. And you do that by basically, I call it pulling back the rubber band, so that when you're ready to launch, it snaps forward, and all of that momentum carries you through an incredible launch day. So let's talk about the first part of that, which is the pre-launch page. So you'll see here a lot of lovely pre-launch pages that range everywhere from 100 followers to 1,600 followers. Once your campaign is approved by Kickstarter and you've gone through the 5 steps, which is basics, rewards, story, people, and money, like how to get distributed money. The word escapes me right now. You can send this for approval. Once you get approved, you then can create your pre-launch page, which will allow you to bring people to your page. Why is it important to do this instead of just having a mailing list or an opt-in? The most important thing is you can't get notified at launch unless you have a Kickstarter account. However, you can opt into anything if you don't have a Kickstarter account. So the main thing that this does is to show you how many people in your audience that are interested in your book also have a Kickstarter account. If you've never done a Kickstarter before, the number will be probably pretty low. Kickstarter has gotten just enormously better in the fiction category. Earlier this year, I saw like 6 or 7 campaigns at a time. Now I see regularly over 100. So there's a lot more fiction and nonfiction backers that are using Kickstarter, but probably your audience is small. So you want to be able to judge the velocity of your success. I recommend a 4-week pre-launch where you announce on week 1. You talk about what Kickstarter is.
Click on this one.
Why do you need to move so long? Because you want to see the velocity of how quickly you get followers. So if you get 10 followers the first time,
Click on
you know,
this one.
probably a lot of work to go. Your job, your goal will be 100 followers When I do this, I aim for anywhere for 4 weeks. People say, well, don't people just do this when you send one email? And the answer is no. Even in week 4, you get a lot of backers, of potential followers. The campaign we just launched for our direct sales book, we had over 400 followers. A week before the campaign launched, we had about 325, so we got almost 100 new followers in that last week. You think that there's not more people to hear about your project? I promise you there always is. And so most people luff off this part, and to their detriment, because this is the most important part of the entire campaign. If you don't get this right, like, your campaign will not be successful. And by successful, I don't mean that you won't launch or succeed. I mean it will not do as well as it could do. When you use this strategy and actually take the weeks to do it, you end up seeing how your campaign fails or succeeds. You end up maybe making choices about how long your campaign is, how much marketing you're going to spend. But if you just finish it in 2 days before you get all of these done, like, you just do not have the data to have a successful launch as you could. Okay, so what does a successful launch mean? I estimate that 100 pre-launch followers equals about $5,000 to $15,000 in backers, and backer money. Now, like, that's a big range, but what's all the rage are these sprayed edges, $85 high-end campaigns, and those are going to raise just a lot more per backer than someone who does, like, my books are just like paperback and ebook, because I just cannot with these straight sprayed edges, super high-end campaigns with vellum pages. It gives me a heart attack. So mine are on the low end of that number. And the next question that people ask me is, what is a good conversion rate? To me, a good conversion rate is between 20 and 40% of your project followers convert into actual backers. So this is in your dashboard. You can see how many people follow your project, how many convert, and the conversion rate. If your campaign is under 20% conversion, your page is not well designed, and you need to go back and fix it. Seriously fix it. If your campaign is over 40% conversion, it means you probably need to do more marketing to get the word out there, because you're being too insular in the people that you are targeting. So the biggest question is really, is there interest? The more interest there is, the more energy you can exert in the launch. If you do not have a good, I have projects that friends have done that I've been in that, like, say, oh, we didn't get the pre-launch followers that we want, so we're going to push this out a month or 2 months or 8 months, or they never do it. So there's so much that you can do in this pre-launch phase. Please don't luff it off, because it will be at your detriment. Once you hit launch, there's a lot you can do, but, like, your campaign is won or lost in that pre-launch area. How do you make money during your launch week? Well, this one should be easy. The other one was like an impossible conundrum, but, like, this one is like, when you launch, you make money because you launched the book and you took advantage of all of the rubber band string that you've pulled back. So your goal here is to fund on the first day, hit funding markers throughout, get project we love or project of the day if you can, use stretch goals, backer rewards, anything that you can to keep the momentum going, and then keep pacing your marketing efforts to add fuel to the fire in the dead zone. We'll talk about the dead zone next. So this is how a good launch curve looks. Almost every launch that you look on this, and this is called KickTrack. It has data on every single campaign that is ever launched on Kickstarter. And almost everyone looks exactly like this, where there's a big number, there's a big bar graph at the top for the first few days, and then it dips down, and then it pops up at the end. The goal is to launch high, and then to maintain that launch for as long as possible, and that is that is a lot of what this game is about and what we're talking about in this section, because the higher you go, the higher you'll settle, which we'll talk about, and then the longer you go, the more momentum you have to carry you forward into your dead zone, which will happen. Even this campaign had a dead zone. It's just, you can see there's a lot of high numbers here before it dips down. The reason that this is so important to get your launch week right is because Kickstarter recommends you in a bunch of places. So you can see on the top left of this graph, you can sort by project we love, safe projects, nearly trended, all sorts of stuff. And the more places that you find, the more places you will be found. At the bottom left, you can also see that you don't have to get project we love. You can join some of their every day they have different initiatives that they're starting. At the bottom left, you see some of those initiatives. The top right, you see Project We Love. Project We Love is really important only because because it's another way to sort. People do sort by Project We Love, but also it just gives your stamp of approval for Kickstarter, and it gives you some authority. The bottom is the project of the day. I have no idea how to get this. I've been doing this for no one. It is curated, and it seems to be just taste that gets you there. So putting together a great campaign and then having some momentum with it is really something that helps. I get project of the day a lot. I still have no idea why or when I get it, except that I'm pleasant and polite, and I put together a good campaign. So the biggest reason to have a good launch week is the bigger you launch, the more you'll be found. So these are some ways that you can be found on Kickstarter. On the top left, every time someone goes to a category page, they see these recommendations. On the top left, you see on the right-hand side, there's recommendations for you. When someone scrolls to the bottom of a Kickstarter campaign, there's recommendations. When they send a Kickstarter email after backing, you get notifications. After you back on the page, you get more things to back. It feels a little bit like also bots. I know it is less sophisticated than that, though. But the more money you raise and the more you can get your campaign looking good, the more you will be found, and all of these things are additive. This is how Kickstarter recommends you. We do a lot with backer swaps and other things and can help you, but the main way that Kickstarter does this is they recommend you in all of these places when people have already backed your campaign and they go to check it out. So if you fund in week 3 or you have a not great launch, you're not going to have very much time to take advantage of that. The longer you have to take advantage of all these recommendations, the better. So the biggest question in this section is your page converting to sales? That should be an easy one because you can see exactly how many sales you have, how much money you've raised, and how good your conversion percentage is. As we talked about in the last section, if your conversion percentage is too low, you need to redesign your page. If your conversion percentage is too high, you need to start doing additional marketing to get that back down. 20 to 40% is kind of the ideal range where you're doing a lot of actions that are good, your page is converting well, and you're finding a lot of new backers, and they're finding you. Section 3 is the dead zone. So this is not just a TV show or a movie for anyone who's as old as I am. It is also a huge part of your Kickstarter campaign. And how you make money in this area of the Kickstarter campaign is 3 ways. Change your message, change your offer, change your audience through cross-promotion and secondary channels. So this is 2 campaigns and the story of 2 different dead zones. Do you see how at the top there's a whole lot of zeros, and those zeros start real early in the campaign? So this is a really, really, really long dead zone. It means that interest has died up. They've reached out. Kickstarter's not really recommending them, and if they can even get to $10 or $20 a day in that dead zone, they'd add hundreds, if not $1,000 to their campaign. This campaign seems to have been successful, but it could have been more successful if they used some of the strategies to help mitigate the dead zone. So the dead zone should start as late as you possibly can, which means you need a lot of cool offers and things to keep the momentum going so people keep backing for this one. The one at the bottom's campaign was 8 days, 9 days before we hit the dead zone. And we had things happening throughout the other days to make it still exciting so that even in the dead zone, we had reasons for people to back. The other thing is, look at how low that graph is at the beginning. The top graph is only $1,500. Sounds like a ton of money, But if you settle at if that's the best you're probably going to do, except for maybe the one day at the end, like you need to get it way higher so that you will settle higher. What I mean by that is my campaign, this campaign at the bottom, raised $7,400 the first day. So you can see even at the worst point of the dead zone, we still raised $300. The higher you start, the higher you settle. Again, yes, you can make this up, but it's way better to do it at the beginning so you can get the most benefit from all of the recommendations. So, what does change your message mean? It means that every week of your campaign, every day of your campaign, you should be talking about different things. One of the biggest marketing problems that people have is their message is simply buy my book or this is live, you should buy it, and like that's just not enough. You need to keep changing your message throughout a launch, whether it's on Kickstarter or otherwise. So you can see here are some examples of ways that I change the message during a launch. So at the top left, after the launch week where I was like, yay, everyone's excited, I started talking about what Ichabod was actually about. You know, there's always the genre and the log line but there's also the theme and the message. And so I spent some time digging deeper. The middle top, there was like a bunch of people in this campaign like thought that they had all the books, which was weird because I had launched a new book, and they clearly did not know that it was like a new volume, and so I made sure to talk about that. It was a never-before-seen volume. They literally couldn't own it because it did not exist. At the top right, I talked about the other characters. A lot of people's favorite characters in books is the secondary and third and tertiary characters, antagonists or best friends or whatever. You can see that I'm not too I'm pretty shameless. I have no problem in capitalizing on my birthday. I talk about some of the best reviews and some of the objections. So all of these extend the different kinds of ways that you can start finding, that you can talk about your work and keep it interesting. My rule is that once I've sent an email, I can never talk about it in the same way again, because if I do, then my idea is that everyone who will be convinced by that message has been convinced when I send that email out, or that piece of social commentary or social message or whatever it is. So I have to keep coming up with different things because there are lots more people to convert, just not with that message. What does changing the offer mean? Well, you could see on the left-hand side on this campaign, we started talking about the book. And then in week 2, we had this offer called Sprint With Us, which became our Kickstarter Accelerator offer. And we just started talking about that and started to get more people backing that campaign at that level and upselling and then selling a lot more of those. On the right side, you can see that this is from the same campaign I showed you in the last panel. I stopped talking about the single issue and started talking about the whole series, that it was a complete series, that it was series branded, and so just changing the offer to start upselling people to higher tiers throughout the campaign. And then this is how to change the audience, which is basically borrowing other people's audience by doing backer swaps or cross promotions. You can see this red, this yellow. All this yellow is campaigns that I backed with. I think I did actually like 80 campaigns on this particular one, and everyone is a new chance to get in front of people, but you do not want to do it until you know your offer is converting. So the biggest question in the dead zone is, are cold and new audiences interested in what you have to offer? Okay, now you're talking about the last days. In the last days, you make money by upgrading people to higher tiers, bringing stragglers in with objections, and then delivering one last surprise. So when we talk about the last days, we talk about this other little upward tick in the end, where the campaign is ending, people are like want to take advantage of it, and so you usually always see this graph upwards, even if it's not so stark as this. The last day of your campaign is usually pretty close to the first day of your campaign, unless you've done just a lot of marketing.
then maybe it will be considerably lower, but you still should see an uptick. When we talk about, this is upgrading to a new pledge level. In our last campaign, not the one that we just launched yesterday, but the one before that, we had a mastermind at Vegas at this event last year, and so we started talking about at the end of the campaign that this was the last chance you could get it. It was quite expensive. We got a couple of people to upgrade, and it really helped our final numbers. Objection handling is another really important part of this area. Usually, by this time you've talked about your book, the people in your book, the themes of your book, what people say to love your book, and so the only thing that's left to do is to say, well, if you don't love the book, if you still are a no, you must have some objection that I have to overcome. And so we all have objections. I know this because I read my own Goodread page. I'm sure you do too. Everyone's got stupid objections that are not valid, but everyone's got valid objections to why they don't want to read your book, and this is a chance for you to say, oh, well, if you don't read horror, that's great. This series is actually fantasy with horror elements. I've already read it. No, you haven't. This is a brand new series. It's literally impossible for you to have read this book. I'm so sick of bad portrayals of mental illness. You get it. There's different things, and each one of these is a chance to convert a different person into your ecosystem and get them excited about what you're doing and start looking at your series in a brand new way. So the big question here is, can you finish strong? This is our one last surprise from a campaign that I did called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, issue number 5. We were still not funded 2 days before the campaign, and we were not funded by a big number, like $1,500 from funding. It's a lot. A lot of people don't raise that for a whole campaign. And so I ended up unlocking a physical copy of issue 6. Until this moment, it was only available digitally. And so this got us from $1,500 under goal to $1,500 over goal. And it was just by offering that one last surprise at the end. People like those surprises, and it helps boost the number at the end, especially if it's something that's limited edition. This has never been printed again. I can't imagine ever being printed again because now this series is done, and we're past that point. So the people there got a custom, excitable, cool reward that no one else could get. Okay, so now the campaign is over, which leads to the next question, the same question as pre-launch. Russell, you told, the campaign is over. It's literally the end of the campaign. How can you make money at the end of your campaign? Quit just making nonsense up. But in fulfillment, you can make money by recovering failed pledges, survey optimizations, add-ons, pre-order stores, and even private messages from your audience. So, failed pledges first. A Kickstarter does not charge any money until the campaign is over, which means that a lot of people will have failed pledges at the end. The bigger your campaign, the more failed pledges you have. Kickstarter does a pretty good job of recovering pledges, but you should also reach out to people and say, hey, just so you know, your pledge wasn't charged. You don't actually get a book yet because you need to fix your pledge. Obviously nicer than that, but you could see massive changes. I've had projects go from thousands of dollars to hundreds of dollars, or even just a few dollars in failed pledges, and then I can recover that later as well. Another way is if you use BackerKit or another post-survey methodology, you can create questions like, may I add you to my mailing list? No, you can't just do it. You have to ask, and which can help build your mailing list on top of your just building your sales. My favorite one. So this is the one that's worth you sitting here for an hour. It may even be worth you coming here. This has made me more money than anything else in fulfillment, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And that is holding something back and offering it only during fulfillment. So I totally forgot that we had these book plates. And after the campaign was over, I was like, oh, well, this is the last time you're going to be able to get this book plate signed by Renzo because I'm not going to bring it places. And so a bunch of my friends had said that they had a good success just asking for upsells in their backer kit surveys. So I decided to try it. I think this one alone made over $1,000 extra for the campaign. It's a significant amount of money. I just did the last campaign that I did, and it was for a thriller called The White Rabbit. And even though that was only a duology, in the survey I said, hey, it looks like you like thrillers. Would you like to try my mystery novel, My Father Didn't Kill Himself, for $5? And I made, again, $100 or so, maybe even more than that, on just people saying yes to that. So it doesn't even have to be relevant to the campaign. Just asking someone if they want to upgrade to another thing does lead to a lot of additional money. And this is something you can also do on your first campaign. A lot of the add-on stuff that I'm going to show in the next panel is really only effective when you have a bunch of books. But this one thing could make you money even on your very, very first campaign. You can also do things like, I'm going to go back for the third time, like let's say you had an exclusive print during the campaign. You could say, hey, I'm not offering this exclusive print anywhere else. Would you like it for $5? You could say, hey, I see you doing ebooks only. Are you sure you don't want prints and upgrading to a higher pledge level? There's all sorts of things you can do even on your first campaign that can bring you money at the end. There's also add-ons. I have hundreds of add-ons at this point, exhausting amount of add-ons. But they do work. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of them at the end of a campaign, even though people had access to a lot of them during the campaign. Also, Indiegogo has an in-demand service that will port your books, your information over to their campaign, so you could use it to get a couple more backers maybe. I don't ever make a lot of money in their in-demand, but I do make enough to make it worthwhile. And then, this is what our backer kit looked like for our Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter campaign. On top of that, we also had $820 in PayPal sales, which was people asking us if we could, it wasn't asking me, it was asking Monica if they could get back into the campaign or pay in PayPal because they couldn't get their Kickstarter to work or something else like that. So we ended up with $2,654 of extra money after the campaign was over. The total raise was $24,206, but it was $21,000. I don't know what happened to this slide. $21,000 in total that we made. So we made more than 10% of the total raise of the campaign in the fulfillment stage. So if you can add 10% in the pre-launch page, 10% in your launch week, 10% in your dead zone, 10% in your last days, 10% in backer kit, that's a huge additional percentage. That's way more than doubling what your campaign could be raising. Okay, and just so you know that it's not a fluke, these are other campaigns in backer kit that we've done, and I just did one that raised over $1,000 on a $5,000 campaign. So that was 25% of the goal that I raised just in backer kit. So this is the thing that I really want to go away with, and seem to have gone a little bit faster than I intended because I did want some time for questions. So I'm sure I'm going to have to go back and talk about something if people have questions. But the thing that people always miss is that the best marketing opportunity is the delivery of the book. The delivery of the book is the best chance you have to market to the people for your next campaign. So many people say, my second campaign didn't do as well as my first. And I'm like, well, of course it didn't. Your first book was jacked up. Nobody wanted your second book because they wouldn't take a chance on you again. So delivering the book, and I'm not talking about all of the filigree. Most people don't care about any of the filigree of bookmarks or anything like that. I mean, the actual book itself, if the book itself is a chance to do marketing. A lot of people add a bunch of extra perks, but then their book doesn't read well, or it's not put together well, And like that's going to break people's hearts. So the number one thing that you can do to make yourself successful is to deliver on time, deliver well, and deliver an experience that people will really, really, really talk about, because they do talk about it. And like it makes it so much easier to do the next campaign when you have done a first campaign well. I call this like, I want as many mindless backers as possible. When I say mindless, I don't mean dumb backers. I mean people who are like, of course I'm gonna get this new thing, like Russell's awesome. Like, I love all of his books. Like, it's always gonna be good, so they don't have to hesitate and say, I don't know. I'm not, like, there's plenty of reasons for them to hesitate and say, I don't know if this is going to be, like, I want it, but like, you don't want them to say, I don't even know if it's gonna be good once I get it. And that is the biggest missed opportunity in all of Kickstarter, is delivering an incredible, exuberant package makes everyone feel so much better and makes things so much easier in the end. I do not do sprayed edges. I don't do like any of this like crazy campaign mishigas. Like I deliver paperbacks and ebooks, and like I still make a lot of money on Kickstarter because like they're good books. So you can deliver a good, solid experience that people like without adding a million extras. And I know I keep harping on this, but I do it because somehow along the way, our methodology, the one that Monica and I created, has been turned into this thing where people are expected to raise and spend thousands of dollars before they launch their campaign, and it is absolutely not that is not what we teach. We want you to have a very small first campaign where you don't have to do very much so that you can, I'm not even touching this thing, so that you can get data and then make decisions for the next campaign. Maybe your second campaign maybe your first campaign will raise 20 grand and you'll be like, wow, I'm gonna go all in the next campaign. Or maybe you'll be like, wow, I only raised $300 and I hated this. I'm never gonna do Kickstarter again. But like, I would rather you say, hit that launch button when you don't need to make the extra money of like having thousands of dollars invested in a thing where you only make $300 or $500 back. So, for anyone who is quoting us and saying that our methodology says to go get vellum inserts and sprayed edges, and that is absolutely, unequivocally not the case. We want you to have a simple first campaign. One campaign is you take a book that sold well and you just celebrate its anniversary with a new cover and release it again because you already know that it's going to make money, and spending a little bit of extra time, effort, and energy on it makes sense. Two is a second chance book, a book that didn't do well at launch, but the people who read it love it, so you already know that people love it when they read it, and to celebrate it again, to give it a second chance, or creating some kind of merch that your fans already want. If you do not have one of those, like you have one book, or you have two books, like just keep it very, very, very simple. Do not have more than a $500 goal unless you know your books will sell on Kickstarter. End of speech. We have a Kickstarter going right now. This is where you can learn all about direct sales mastery for authors. If you have any interest, which you did for listening to me for an hour, like, you should buy the book, or at least check it out. All right, awesome. There's already a question.
Are we on? Excellent. A question for you. You said about changing your message and communicating something different about the Kickstarter every time you talk to them. What do you mean by every time? How are you talking to them? Are you talking about using your email list and sending that out, or are you talking about physically going onto the Kickstarter page and redoing your Kickstarter page every week so that a different aspect of the book is highlighted there?
I mean, that is a thing Monica talks about doing to our campaign, and it sounds exhausting. No, I want one page that is targeted for all of the things, and then the messaging would be your social post, your email, whatever post that you're doing to entice people over to the campaign, because you're just, and The thing is, most of these things will be contained on your Kickstarter page. So the biggest thing is people think that the people that go to their page read the whole page, and it's just not true. So the main thing you can do to your campaign to get way better results is to do something called a sideways sales letter, where you just take every section of your campaign page and send it in an email out. Because I promise you, every single time you do it, someone has not read that who will be interested and go back to your page, and they're likely back it depending on the size of your audience. But the first thing that I do is I say the campaign's live, and then the second thing I do is I start going through the sideways sales letter and just taking things out of my page and talking about them. So it is, if you don't have the things on your page that you're going to talk about in an email, you probably should. Like, you should have all of that stuff, but you don't have to create new messaging. I mean, you can if the page is absolutely ungodly not working, but you don't have, once the page is converting well, you shouldn't touch it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm curious about genres. Is there any genres that don't do well on Kickstarter and others that do much better?
Anything contemporary does bad, anything paranormal does well. Sorry, everyone, it's contemporary. We're trying to fix the problem, but like, if you've got monster porn or like fantasy, sci-fi, horror, it just does really well. Like, there's already audiences built in. Contemporary books just, I'm not saying don't do them. I'm just saying, like, we see the biggest disparity in those types of books. They can be successful, but it is much more reliant on your own audience and not other people's audience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. The first is, you said that you shouldn't launch a large Kickstarter if you only have 1 or 2 books out. Is that because you're targeting your mailing list and your audience that you've already built up, or you're just not sure if that book is marketable yet?
I mean, if you have a 1 or 2 books, you probably have not locked in your marketing or your messaging yet. All of this is subjective. You might have launched 2 books and be like a 7-figure author, but you probably aren't if you've launched a couple of books. And also, those books have probably not proven that they are saleable onto a large market. So I see authors all the time being like, I'm doing my first campaign for my first book, and I'm spending $5,000 to get 1,000 books in there. And I'm there, like, I've done that before. And then I spent 5 years going around and selling those books. So I'm more saying, don't be me. But the most important thing is that you have, you should do a small campaign because you just don't know enough to do a big campaign, and you haven't earned out of a series enough to justify doing like vellum inserts. Like when Bonkers Romance does a campaign with vellum inserts and illustrations in every chapter, those books have or will raise $100,000, so putting extra money into it makes sense. For an author with only 1 or 2 books, probably you want to start small, but you also want to start small because, like, then you have data. Mainly, you don't have data. You don't have enough data to probably do a big campaign.
And are you tapping into a larger audience and market with Kickstarter, or are you mostly targeting your current base, would you say?
So that completely depends on the genre that you launch on Kickstarter and how active you are in the community on Kickstarter. If you reach out to if you do well and other authors want to cross-promote with you, and you do well to get recommendations, and you have the right genre, I'm sorry, this sounds a lot like Amazon, how people tell you about Amazon success, but like, then you will get more.
Okay.
If you bring 25 to 30 people, usually it's usually 50%. You have to bring like the first 20 to 25 to 30 to for Kickstarter to like really lock in its algorithm, but after that, like, they do a pretty good one-to-one match. After that, I usually have about 50%, but it does depend on the genre, and it does depend on how tapped in you are and how much you want to do community building with the rest of the Kickstarter community.
All right, thank you. And I have one more question. So I noticed that a lot of paranormal fantasy, that there's artwork. Should we be commissioning art or getting different images for advertising specifically for Kickstarter to attract an audience?
You absolutely should not do advertising on Kickstarter unless you have a 100 organic backers and a $60 ARPU. I'm pretty sure I answered the question about, like, should you do illustrations? Like before, you should have the smallest campaign you possibly can when you do the first one. So no, I would say don't do anything. Like, don't do anything new except getting a new format and a new cover. Nothing additional unless you know the books are going to sell, because like you will go into debt and you will get bitter and you will still have to deliver books and you'll be like paying to deliver books, and that is not fun.
Okay, thank you.
I have some friends who have done Kickstarter campaigns. Some have been successful, some not so successful. But one problem that has cropped up that I'm wondering if you've encountered, and if you have, how you deal with it, and if you haven't, if you know if Kickstarter has a background thing for it. And that's where I think they figure they come from bots where people will support a campaign at quite a bigger amount. They might be your $500 backer or your $1,000 backer, and it looks like your campaign is doing wonderful well, and then the day before it ends, they pull it out. And you think you've already got a campaign started, but you don't maybe.
You should be wary of any campaign, of any pledge that is very high. But you should not count any money that you make on Kickstarter to be money you made on Kickstarter until the campaign closes. So, but if you if you've got 20 backers and one of them is for $10,000, like you probably don't have $10,000, or you probably don't even have $500.
Okay, but so when I think they tell me, I haven't done a Kickstarter campaign yet, thinking about it, that they will say that their campaign is fully funded. It comes up on their screen and whatever because it meets a certain amount, but in the end, when these bots or whatever they are pull off at the end, they don't. Does Kickstarter have any checks and balances in the background?
You would have to ask Oriana about that.
Okay, thank you.
But they have a trust and safety team. All right, can I take one more? This one last one? This is the last question.
What advice would you have for children's authors on Kickstarter?
My friend Sherry Fink used to do a lot with children's book authors. Children's books are very similar to comics. So I would say that, like, children's books are really hard, like, because you're marketing to the parents, not the person. So, like, the best thing that I generally see for kids' books is just to, like, read them out loud, like, let people try them, like, encourage them to, like, look at them and see if their kids will like it, because, like, unlike a novel where, like, you really can't give the book away and then say to buy it, like, if a kid likes a book, they're going to like it the 100th time also, not only the first time. So, like, you might as well do, like, a read-along or, like, an audio book or, like, something so the parents can see it. But I don't write kids' books because that is a market that is exhausting to me, trying to market to both kids and parents. But yeah, I mean, I would say, like, the more just show art, like, talk about theme, talk about, like, who the books are targeted to, kids between 2 and 3, reader books. This is about empathy and kindness and, like, whatever the themes are, like, people are buying they want the kid to be engaged, but, like, want the theme, like, and that's more important, I think, with children's books, like, how your kid is going to react to it, how will they interact with it, and, like, what are you going to teach them?
Thank you.
You're welcome. There are 2 sign-up sheets out there for people that want to get a free copy of my Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter book, and a bunch of other resources. Wherever the things are, they should come to me, please. And otherwise, I have a meetup starting at the lobby bar at 2, and you can find me there to ask all of your questions. Thank you.